Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi, and today we're taking a look at the new Cle de Peau holiday collection for 2023. So we're going to start off with swatches, then we'll go to demos and details. So let's take a look at the items in this collection. And I want to start off by saying that typically every year, Cle de Peau has a couple exclusives on their website. Usually with their holiday collections, they'll release an eyeshadow quad, just like this one. This is 501 Visions of Radiance. And then they'll release two luminizers, a warmer one and a cooler one, and then 4 lipsticks. And, there may be other pieces, part of the collection, in different years. We've had cream blushes in the past and so forth. But, typically 2 of the 4 lipstick shades and 1 of the luminizers are exclusive to the Cle de Peau website. It has not launched on the Cle de Peau website yet, but I've noticed all the preview photos online of this collection are not showing a second luminizer or 2 additional lipsticks. So I might be wrong about that. Maybe they're not doing that this year. So we'll see. I'll definitely keep you posted. Follow me on YouTube on the community tab. That's where I'll post any updates, as well as Instagram. I'm at Alexis Jong. And this here's 501 Visions of Radiance. And I'll be showing that you can see this little clip on the side where everything was pristine, but I have already used this. You can see that with your first use, you are going to be losing the fish imprint here. Obviously, all of the overspray on here for the fireworks, that's going to go away immediately as well. So our first shade here is this really beautiful, soft, shimmery orange. I think it's actually a really beautiful shade. It does have a touch of, there's a touch of pink to it, a touch of yellow to it. So it's a pretty neutral, more like a, if you're looking at a mandarin orange, it's like the perfect mandarin orange shade. So that's going to be a shimmery shade. Then we move on to this pink here, and this is going to be a satin, and it's a really pretty pink. There is a touch of blue in here, but I wouldn't call it a cool tone pink. It's still going to be a little bit to the warmer side. So there's a slight bit of blue, but predominantly it's going to be a warm pink. Then this primer shade, and I have to say, I've been using the new Cle de Peau quads, and they always have this cream primer shade in them. So this one does as well, but this is a little bit firmer than those in the permanent collection. So when I first touched it, I wasn't actually sure that it was cream. It was pretty stiff, but you can see that it is going to be a translucent warm pink. There is some shimmer in here. You've got some golden glitter in that shade as well. It's micro glitter, super finely milled, not super noticeable, but will give you a sparkle. Then this last shade here, this is kind of this burnt umber mixed with a little terracotta. This is going to be another satin shade. So there are no actual matte shades in here. These 2 are satins. We've got the translucent primer, and then we have a shimmer. So this is the quad. So the quad is going to lean warm. Now with the quad, it does come with a Cle de Peau case. And, typically for this collection, you can see that on the one side, we do have kind of this underwater scene. And we'll talk about this collection in a moment, but it was inspired by The Little Mermaid. Now, the luminizer also has a pouch like that. So on one side, you have the CP, and then we've got the fish on the other side. So our luminizing face enhancer, this is shade number 106, Dawn of Destiny. And I left this half of it untouched, but there is an overspray on here. So it will be a little bit more sparkly if you go straight in. You can see kind of that golden shimmer on there that you don't really see here. That being said, it is a shimmery luminizer regardless. So let me just show you here. It is without the top coat. I'll just kind of buff that out a bit. And you can see it's definitely going to be shimmery. This is going to be, it's ivory with a touch of peach. You can see we've got some peach, we've got some mint, we've got some gold kind of mixed in there. So it does lean, I would say it leans slightly warm, but it's still totally neutral. It can be used by people with cooler skin tones as well. Now I'm going to swatch down here at the bottom where I have not touched yet. So you can see the overspray, and you can see kind of the difference in the shimmer level there. So it will definitely be more shimmery with the top coat on. If you don't want that, just take a cloth, wipe it off right away. And, it's The luminizer is the same as the other luminizers, you know, in the permanent collection formula wise. So very, very nice. Then we have two lipsticks. So let me go ahead and show you these. So we do have the mermaid here on both sides. And we have a satin and a matte. Now you can see when you open this up, we do have fish. These are not refillable, unfortunately. So just something to note. This is 524 Radiant Pink. Let's go ahead and put this here. And that's one layer, and then we'll build that up. So this is going to be a cooler tone pink shade, but it's actually a pretty neutral pink with just a touch of coolness. So I wouldn't call it a completely cool tone shade here. It's a really nice medium rose. And then we also have 525 Fearless and Coral. This is a matte shade. This is what's on my lips right now. And Cle de Peau mattes are a very creamy matte, so they never dry down to like powder finish. You can see this is going to be a true coral. Now, real quickly, before we look at the swatches and demos, I just want to show you this packaging here. So you can see we've got this beautiful mermaid scene, you know, underwater. It's the same thing on the lipsticks and so forth. So that's kind of our theme. So let's take a look at those swatches and demos and talk a little bit about this collection. So this collection, the artwork is done by Katie Rogers, and it's supposed to capture the essence of the mermaid's world. So it has been inspired by the Little Mermaid fairy tale. And I have to say, it's a really beautiful collection. Cle de Peau holiday collections are never really truly, they're more like a special limited edition collection than something most people think of as a holiday item. You know, we're not looking at something necessarily Christmas or Hanukkah or anything like that. We're always looking at some sort of special capsule collection. And, you know, like the one year we had the lambs and so forth, which really seemed very, very spring-like. So, you know, this doesn't seem like a very wintry collection per se, but it definitely fits in the category of a special limited edition. I think the packaging on here is beautiful. You've got kind of the Little Mermaid scene, and then you have a little bit of like golden droplets on the packaging that are, you know, overlaid on top of it. So it kind of looks like you're raining golden drops, and I just think it's gorgeous. Now, that being said about the artwork, I do have to say that color-wise, being inspired by The Little Mermaid, I think of oceans and so forth, and they're really focusing a lot on those bright, colorful fireworks, perhaps maybe a mermaid's tail that's like these golden oranges and pinks and so forth. But I really expected to see some blues and greens with a mermaid-inspired collection. So, you know, I'm a little surprised by the lack of blues and greens in this collection, because I just thought there would be something cooler tone, perhaps maybe like an icier purple lipstick, you know, like your lips were cold type look. So those are kind of my thoughts on the color story. As for the quality of these products, they are definitely, you know, great quality. I would have to say though, the primer in this eyeshadow quad, it's not as creamy as those in the permanent quad, so I do actually prefer the other ones. I'm curious to know, you know, how this one will hold up over time. My new quads, those are still just as good as when I bought them, but this one being a little bit drier, I'm curious whether or not this will be the future state of those. So we'll have to wait and see. But as for the shades in this eye color quad, you know, you're definitely looking at a warm color story. My favorite though is this mandarin orange, this shimmery shade. It's really beautiful, and I do find it to be different than a lot of other shades that we've seen in quads. You know, we've seen a lot of these pink and terracottas and so forth, but this mandarin orange has kind of the right balance to make it a little different than things that we've seen in, you know, previous palettes from various brands as well. So I really do like that particular shade. Now, as I mentioned, the lipsticks and so forth are not refillable, but the luminizer packaging and the eyeshadow packaging are refillable. So if you love this packaging, you could definitely purchase, you can't purchase the quads or the packaging on its own, but you could purchase the quad or the luminizer and then switch it out for another color story in the future, you know, because they are refillable. So it's only the lipsticks that are not. Now, as for details on here, the eyeshadow, we do come with 2 utensils like we always do with the Cle de Peau quads. And this quad is 501 Visions of Radiance. We have 6 grams of product with a 2-year shelf life, just like the other Cle de Peau quads. You know, as I mentioned, these are removable, but they are in a plastic quad. So it's a plastic pan that clips in. So you wouldn't necessarily be able to put in any shadow of your choice. You do want to kind of stick with the Cle de Peau brand. Now, as for the luminizer, I really wanted to show you the luminizer, you know, kind of on bare skin as well. So I have the Cle de Peau, the foundation on as a base. And then for this swatch demo here, this is just a luminizer, no blush. You know, I just wanted you to really be able to see what that color looks like. And I have a neutral skin tone that leans slightly cool. So you can see that this shade is just absolutely beautiful. And then for actual wear today, I am pairing it with one of the Cle de Peau blushes. This is going to be in shade 103. It's a beautiful soft peachy coral shade, and you know, the luminizer on top of that. So you can see the impact the luminizer can make depending on what brush you use and how dense that brush is. Obviously, if you want something very light and subtle, you want to go with something like the fan brush that I used in today's demo. But if you would like more impact, you can go with a smaller, more targeted blush like the Hakuhodo one I used, or if you really want some luminescence, definitely go with something like a blush brush. You can even put this on underneath blush and kind of mix it with that to get a really beautiful radiant blush as well. So the luminizer, by the way, you know, you can also use this on the eyes, and I love using Cle de Peau luminizers on the inner corner because they give just the right amount of sparkle for me, and yet the shades are always kind of right smack dab in neutral, neither too cool or too warm, so they kind of complement any look. Moving on to the lipsticks, I have to say this lipstick packaging is stunning. I really do wish that these were refillable cases. I would love to be able to use these after the shades are gone. Now, we do have 2 shades here. We have the satin in Radiant in pink. It's a really beautiful mid-tone pink, you know, pretty much a neutral rosy pink. And then we have the Fearless Coral, Fearless in Coral 525. And that's your matte, but as I mentioned, the Cle de Peau mattes are always going to be a little bit of a creamy matte. They never get that dry powder matte finish on your lips, but they end up looking more like a soft cream lipstick, in my opinion. So they don't really have that satin sheen that you get with the satin lipstick. It's definitely gonna be more subdued, more of a cream finish. And I think both finishes are gorgeous. I really appreciate both of them. In this particular collection, I do actually prefer this satin lipstick. I love this satin lipstick. Let's go ahead and move on to some comparisons though. So I want to start off with some lipstick comparisons, and we're going to start off with the Cle de Peau holiday lipsticks from last year. Now, one of the things I really liked about last year's packaging is that they were dual-sided. I really love that, you know, option. So it would have been nice if we had the mermaid on one side, and then perhaps, you know, if you're looking at this, we have the mermaid on one side, maybe this half on the other, or, you know, just something a little different. I really love having that dual side because if you do have multiple shades, it helps you identify which one's which, you know, if you twist the cap and so forth. So, yeah, that's just my personal request for the future, I guess. But let's take a look at last year's shades. So let's start off with the matte shades from last year. We have the shade 523 Stellar Red. This is one that I have worn a ton this year. I really love this shade. I think it is a gorgeous, you know, it is a red with a rosy tone. It's a little cool. I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. We also have 520 Heavenly Peach. And I think this is a really nice kind of peachy shade. It's not as bright as the coral in here. It's got a little bit of a dustier vibe, and it's a little bit more subdued. Now we do have 2 satins from last year. We have 521 Starlight Pink. This is really not going to be, you know, like the new pink. You can see it's a lot cooler. It's brighter. Really beautiful shade though. I really appreciate that one a lot. And then we have 522 Cosmic Red, which, you know, it's red, but it's kind of more of a corally red. So you can see compared to the Fearless and Coral here, we have a lot more of that brighter like orange vibe mixed in here, whereas we have more of a brick red mixed in, but they are kind of, you know, it's kind of like they have a similar base. So this is going to be definitely like more brown, a little bit more brick-like versus our brighter coral for this year. Now let's take a look at a few in the permanent line that, you know, made me think of these. So this is one of the Cle de Peau shimmer lipsticks in the permanent line. This is 311 Powerhouse Pink. Just kind of wanted to see how this one compares. This one is sparkly. You can see it's definitely going to be cooler and lighter in tone. It's more sheer. This is more of a Barbie pink. So that one doesn't quite go. But then I wanted to take a look at a couple of the liquids. So this is a Cream Rouge Shine in 206 Caliandra. I love this shade, but I think this is going to be, yeah, it's cooler in tone. There's definitely more blue in there. Really beautiful shade though. This is one of my most used of the Cle de Peau liquids. And then this one here is also Cream Rouge Shine in 203 Heliconia. And see how that one compares. So this is going to be more red, definitely brighter. Unfortunately, those were kind of my closest from the Cle de Peau line. This is the Burberry Kisses in number 41, Pomegranate Pink. Just kind of wanted to see how this one compares. Let's put it here. Oh, no, that's too red. And the other shade I want to take a look at, this is Guerlain number 63. So this one here is the Cherry Blossom one. I have seen this shade, you know, out before though. So you can see that this is going to be a little bit cooler. It's got a little bit more mauve to it, but that's kind of my closest comparison with the Radiant in Pink. Now I have to tell you, I don't have anything like this one. I don't have anything like this quad. So we're going to move on to the illuminators. And I wanted to kind of look at a couple in the permanent line as well as last year's. So this is 106, the new one. And then this here is 17 Celestial Sparks. So I believe it used to be called Lavender. So let's go ahead and take a look at this one. And let's see here, put it right here. You can see that this one definitely, you can see a little bit more of that bluish tint to it. It's definitely gonna be a little bit cooler than the new one. I also want to take a look at this one, which is 201 Twilight's Glow. So again, new one, and this is permanent 201 Twilight's Glow. This is gonna be deeper. And this one we're looking at purples and pinks and reds. This is definitely gonna be a lot rosier. Look at that. You can see the pink sheen there. It's gonna be a bit deeper. Now looking at last year's, we have the new one, last year's 104, which was called Radiant Superstar. This is the one that was exclusive to the Cle de Peau website. And this has been, if I had to pick one highlighter over the past year, this is the one I've used the most. I absolutely love this shade. You can see it's got a little bit more of like a peachy vibe to it than this year's. Let me go ahead and just swatch that one more time right next to it. You can see that this year's is going to be a little bit whiter, a little bit brighter. We have a little bit more like a champagne peach, but you know, I do think this year's is a good alternative if you miss that one. Then, okay, so new one, and then this here is 105 Shimmering Orb. This was last year's other holiday highlighter. And this is the cooler tone one, which surprisingly I didn't use as much. It kind of surprised me. You can see it's going to be a little bit cooler than this year's. There's a little bit more like blue lavender to it. That being said, a lot of these can look very similar on the skin, especially if you're using them sparingly. So you really want to focus more on which undertones are going to work best for you. I would say that this year's offering is pretty neutral. So I think it's a really great one. So we've got this swatch here is the new one. And then these here are the new one. The Cle de Peau holiday collection called Toward the Horizon, I think is a really beautiful holiday collection. To me, it doesn't scream holiday, but it does scream festivities. So, you know, we're looking at the Little Mermaid. We see fireworks on here. We see fireworks on the actual eyeshadows and so forth. And I think it's really beautiful. It definitely screams something festive and something special, something limited edition. And I think it's really beautiful. One of the great things about holiday collections from Cle de Peau is you can always tell them apart from other holiday collections, where a lot of brands gravitate towards always having like a gold palette or perhaps something green or blue, you know, reminiscent of snow or evergreen trees and things like that. Cle de Peau always does something different, and it's always something unique. So for this collection, you know, I would have to say, if you are interested in picking up any of these items, you know, the packaging on the quad and the luminizer, they are gorgeous, and these are refillable. So I definitely think these are worthwhile, you know, purchases to pick up if you intend to use this packaging again in the future. So, you know, I think it's definitely fantastic. And I forgot to mention the luminizer, by the way, is 10 grams of product with a 2-year shelf life. So definitely, you know, something to take note of. And all of these products are made in Japan. Now, the lipsticks, I think they're beautiful. I think the packaging on them is stunning. I love having the little fish on here and so forth. I do wish this was refillable. I think the shades are beautiful. I don't have an exact dupe of anything in my collection, but at the same time, they are not necessarily special shades. So for me, if I were to pick one thing from this collection, for me, it's the luminizer. I think the luminizer is absolutely gorgeous. Following that, I would go with the eyeshadow quad because it is something different from what I have in my collection. But aside from that, for me, in this case, it's about the packaging here because it is stunning. It's definitely one that I intend on using in the future. So, you know, you don't want to get any of this for like the imprints or any of the design on the eyeshadows, but the outer packaging being reusable, I think is a really smart decision there. And of course we have these, you know, cases. Honestly, I never use these, but it is nice that they are imprinted with something on there as well. So I think this is a really nice collection, a great departure. The quality is, you know, your classic Cle de Peau quality. So we're looking at high quality items here and something different from what other brands are, you know, introducing for the holiday season. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know if you've tried any of these things. Again, I will definitely keep you updated as to whether or not there are additional items in this collection or not. I'm very eager to see what shows up on the Cle de Peau website. So be sure to follow me if you are interested in seeing more reviews like this. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day.